Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com. You can leave comments there, or email us at whoknewpodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at whoknewpodcast, and find us on Facebook. Today's episode is episode 7 of season 6, A Good Man Goes to War. This is the day. This is Demon's Run. This is when the Doctor finds out the truth about River Song. This episode is written by Stephen Moffat, directed by Peter Hoare. It originally aired on the 4th of June, 2011, and was watched by 7.51 million viewers. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hi, everyone. This is Kelsey.
Hey, everyone. It's Heather.
Hi there. This is Frank.
Hello, this is Auburn.
Hi, this is Brian.
Amy has had her baby and named her Melody Pond. She tells the child that a remarkable man is on his way, a man who has lived hundreds of years and no army can stand in his way. He is the last of his kind, and he is your father, the last Centurion. Across the galaxy, Rory boards a Cyberman ship with a message and a question. Where is my wife? The Cyber leader asks what the message is, and as if on cue, the 12th Cyber Legion fleet explodes in front of them. Rory, still waiting for an answer, does not want to repeat himself.
I love Amy's anger with the bad guys and her confidence in Rory.
I fell for her talking about the Doctor. I mean, they wrote it so well, where it's like, when she said, he's your father, it's like, what, wait?
Yeah, I fell for it even though I'd seen it before. That's why I mean, fool me once, but dang.
Fool me twice, it's a privilege.
It's a good gag. And it made it all the more like badass at the end, you know. Rory's like silhouette walks in the Centurion outfit.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great Rory moment.
Why the Centurion outfit? Okay, whatever.
We find out later that the Doctor just likes it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, though, continuing to put Rory and continuing to call him the last Centurion is why it's so confusing for me to remember, okay, is this plastic Rory or is this real Rory?
Right.
Like, when you go back and yeah, because they keep putting him in the last Centurion outfit, so it kind of muddles the storyline a little bit.
The Doctor explains a little bit later, but yes, it is very muddled, and it's just to have him in an outfit, in a costume.
I mean, he looks good in it.
I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Put the man in a cape and some chest armor.
This goes to back what I was saying with Rory in the Centurion outfit. It's style over substance, and he could have been in like anything. It didn't matter. But what he said was, Arthur said that this is a different costume than the one he wore in the Pandorica Opens, because that one was made of brass. So every time he walked, it sounded like he was a one-man band. But now in A Good Man Goes to War, it's made of leather, so it doesn't make those noises.
Ooh.
Well, I think visually and even for him mentally, as the character of Rory, he remembers being the Centurion. He remembers thousands of years waiting for Amy and having to survive and struggle and fight. So I think part of that is when you have that costume on, that feeling can be easily accessed. If he just came in just jeans and the t-shirt and the jacket, that's just Rory, who was fun. But this is, I'm here for business, and I think it changes mentality.
Right,
So
that's
why they would want to put it on.
Right, it's his armor. This is Warrior Rory, not Nurse Rory, which I think comes back, is kind of played on throughout this episode.
But then again, it goes back to, is he plastic? Is he not? It made me have to switch the gears in my head and go, oh, he remembers. So that's
Right.
like going forward. It's still very confusing, even though they do explain it. So I think yes, I do agree with you what both of you are saying, but visually it reminds me of how confused I was originally. And like when Martha in the end of her season, when she was walking the earth alone, she was decked out in like tactical gear. I know that probably wouldn't be the same effect, but that could have been something visually to change Rory's outfit.
So I totally get you. And I also was very confused. And I think that putting them in that is for fans and diehards. It is somebody who knows.
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with you guys. Where it was done differently, and Did it work better? I mean, we don't know because we weren't given that with Rory.
Right.
Have we
Oh.
ever seen a Cyberman with the brain showing?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the signifies the cyber leader. So that's the guy in charge of.
Also, difference with the cyber leader this time with the exposed brain is the black handles on his helmet. These also aren't the same Cybermen from Pete's world because they don't have the Cybus C on their chest.
Wow.
I also like the opening shots and the way that, not only is Amy telling the story, that's kind of a misdirect, but I think it opens with like really soft lighting on Amy and close-ups of the baby and
The
her.
baby. Yeah.
Little
And then-
Vaseline on the screen.
Yeah, but then by the time we get to the wide shot, we see that there's the clerics and the eye patch lady behind her, and we're now in like a normal television mode. But I just thought that was a fun transition to get us, not only is the story kind of misdirecting us, but the visuals are also misdirecting. Like this, it is this really sweet maternal moment between Amy and Melody, but it's also this huge moment of saying goodbye because the Gestapo is right behind you about to take your baby.
Yeah.
A misdirect. I think this is the last time they do it, and I like how they kind of put a button on it where it's like, at the end, she has been talking about Rory the entire time. And so I don't think they go back to it ever again after this. We've established she loves Rory. Yeah.
And yet we all fell for it.
Well, thank you for bringing that up because I think that's what brings confusion to me is because if Rory was just to remember that and the doctor, that would be fine with me. But then having somebody else remember it.
She's the one who brought the memories back. So the people who remember are TARDIS adjacent.
Maybe I just find it confusing that she still remembers that stuff. I'm just saying that adds to my confusion.
Yeah, I'm with Eugene on that. It confuses me as well because I'm like, oh, so it did happen in this timeline, or wait, what? No.
But no,
it
it didn't.
Rebooted.
Right.
What?
Right. It didn't happen in this timeline. It happened in another one, but they remember that old timeline. I mean, even their wedding night, the singing telegram, and he was a Roman soldier. And also, if you knew somebody that you loved did all that, even if you didn't see it, and stayed by you and protected you for thousands of years.
It's just, I guess when I hear the word reboot, when like the world reboots, I expect everything to go back. But these people, like you said, are TARDIS adjacent, so they know of the other timeline. And again, it's just confusing for myself.
True. And I mean, I felt that way at the beginning, but now it's like, no, I'm glad that they're the ones who remember. It makes sense. They were the ones who were the catalyst for creating this new world. And they needed to remember. That was the whole meaning of it at the end of Pandorica, that Amy's memory is what brought everything back.
Right. But in the narration, what she's saying is like, everyone knows him as the last Centurion. It's like, no, not everyone. The Doctor, Rory, and you know him as the last Centurion. So I think it's like language like that when it's being used. It's like, oh, everyone knows him as last Centurion. So yeah, it's confusing.
But I think that's where the misdirect comes from in the beginning, because how she's talking is you think it's the doctor, like everyone would know who that is, and then when it's not, you're like, oh right, he was the Centurion.
Yeah,
Anyway, I just wanted to state that added to my confusion.
I agree.
So what's with the catchy montage that explains the premise?
The new opening.
Oh, what we
It's
get
so not
before.
needed.
Isn't that the American opening?
I mean, I know they did it for America.
But this was the actual first time that this opening was on Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's always bugged me.
And this was also the last episode before a large break, because at the end it's like Doctor Who will return. So it's just a weird place to put it. It's like your last episode before, but
Right.
it also feels very much like it could be the start of a new like storyline. Like it could have been a premiere after a mid-season break because of the whole beginning with the baby and everything, and then Amy's monologue explaining that it's the Amy show, not the Doctor show.
The main reason I don't think I liked the addition of that is because it turned the focus from the title show of Doctor Who into Amy is the primary person. This is Amy's story.
But I feel like, regardless of how, I feel like they meant to do that. And I don't exactly know why, but they must have.
I think it's because Moffat likes his female companions.
Yeah, but even Russell said Rose was the main character.
Yeah, but it was done differently.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I totally agree. Now, I mean, like Russell did it, but you are right. Moffat rams it down.
There's a spotlight that Moffat does that I think we're picking up on that we don't like.
It focuses so much on Amy that it's like, well, you're really changing the focus on this bluntly. Saying this, what somebody asked you, what's Doctor Who about? Oh, it's about Amy, who's a girl who met this stranger. And that's not what the show's about.
Amy is being held at Demon's Run, a military asteroid base run by the eye patch woman, Madame Kavarian. The soldiers there are talking about the destruction of the Cyber Legion, and one of them, Lorna Bucket, says she met the Doctor as a young girl. She decided to join the army in the hopes of seeing him again. Another soldier says they are here to fight the Doctor, not to praise him. Also on board to help in the fight are the hooded, headless monks, who believe that the heart holds faith and the head holds only doubts. Creepy.
But I really like the name Lorna Bucket.
Yeah.
A cute name.
And I like the explanation of the headless monks. You know, the head is where you get the doubt, and they're just faith-based and following.
And when they talk about the headless monks, they have that really cool guillotine transition.
Yes.
Not a-
Right.
Or implied guillotine transition, which I probably never noticed before. I thought that was really neat this time.
And I like the two guys who were playing with the psychic paper. Okay, figure which one's out, the real one, and which one's the psychic paper.
Oh, you have to look for the fractals.
Exactly. I thought that was a good little bit.
Was there a little bit of a Ghostbusters reference kind of in that with Bankman with the psychic?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
What am I thinking?
Yeah.
I like that Lorna Bucket is similar to Amy. She met the Doctor when she was young, and then even more like young Amelia,
Mhm.
but even more like Elton from Love and Monsters. He met the Doctor or something happened with him and the Doctor when he was young. And then when the two soldiers are talking to Lorna, the fat one tells the thin one a rumor that the Doctor once chased the Atraxi off planet and called them back for a scolding, which is a reference to the 11th hour.
Definitely caught that one.
That type of reference I like.
I did think a lot of this was filler, and it was kind of hit and miss for me. It was like the working on psychic paper, that was a hit, that worked for me. But then it's like, why do we need other names? We're the short, fat gay couple. Like, that's silly.
I do feel like they were a little blatant about that. Like, look, we have gay people on our show. We're cool.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but
Yeah.
really?
Where again, yes, where again Russell did it differently, where they were just who they were and they didn't call themselves out with a spotlight.
Yeah, I thought that was obnoxious, and it almost worked in the opposite way for me.
Exactly.
And then of course it continues to happen in this episode and in future episodes where they just shove it down our throats. And I don't mean that. I think you guys know what I mean when I say that. Like, just not.
It's so obvious.
It's like they want a parade or a cookie or something, and it's like just it doesn't have to be like that.
I agree with you.
It's very irritating.
So these guys, that they're the only gay people on the whole ship, and so they stand out. It was, no, we're the people who are gay and we're fabulous, and it's like, you know us. That's all we need. It can't be taken that way.
It's still nice to have representation on the show, even if it's not portrayed the way that I would have chosen to portray it. This stuff is filler, but I also think it helps build the ongoing argument that the Doctor has become too famous.
Yeah.
So I think probably it's just little tacks in that board that they're adding throughout the episode.
And I'm weird. I don't usually mind exposition. I'm not one of those people who are like, get rid of it, because to me it's kind of world building. You know, they're telling you about headless monks, so they're introducing the headless monks. You know, they're saying that, you know, this religion is the Anglican religion, which I thought was interesting. That it wasn't just that religion moved on, but it was like the Church of England became this military thing, and I liked that. But then there was just kind of like, okay, a couple of your attempts at humor fell flat.
Well, to me, there's certain things that, yes, this is world building, but it's not enough. Like, I don't know the logic of what the church has become, the papal mainframe, which they'll be called later, where when we saw the bishop and clerics in Time of Angels, that was like the bishop is now a rank, and the clerics are also, they seem to be a rank as well, where these, the fat one and the thin one, they have cleric written on their patch. So is that the rank? Is that equivalent to a private, a cadet, where the bishop is, which we'll later find out, they still have colonel. So why isn't he a bishop? So there are certain things that, yes, this is world building, but it's not going far enough for me where I find the exposition intriguing. I find it filler now because it's not cohesive enough for me.
I think sort of similar to the clerics. Yeah, it is too surfacey. Like I think it would have been really nice to see the thin one later like have an actual scene of mourning for his husband, because like we kind of see that we see that realization on his face later, but we don't see like there's no real human connection. Like the doctor doesn't talk about it, like, right? Or did I miss
Yeah.
that?
No, you're
No,
right.
you're right.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if it comes up in the next episode.
No, it doesn't.
We leave Demons Run. But yeah, it's that kind of surfacey stuff where it tries to connect, but when you don't get to that deeper point later, the first point seems even more cheap because there's no payoff.
Yeah, because I'm waiting for these little dots to kind of like connect, but they never really do, because the church is aligning itself with the headless monks. It says, like, why are there two separate functions or factions where to me they should all be one if the church has moved on? I want to know.
Have you seen Religion?
No, but I'm saying is that I want the exposition to explain that to me. Like, where's this going? Why do they need to ally themselves with another faction?
I mean, just on the surface level, they're showing that the Doctor is really strong and everybody has to gang up against him to get anything.
And that I get. I just it leaves more questions to me as I'm watching this.
Maybe they weren't wrong, and Americans do need a little more hand-holding.
I was gonna say, everything that has happened in this episode so far has been confusing to you, Eugene. It would be to me too if I overthought things. But I'm just, if I don't understand something, I'm like.
But that's what I do now, is that I'm looking at these episodes through a bigger magnifying glass or a microscope, and where they didn't bother me when I was a casual fan or a fan. And then now that I'm on a podcast dissecting it, I'm like, wait a minute, my writer brain takes over and goes, why aren't these things connecting in this world?
I thought this was more of a time period before the clerics, before the Byzantium, in that time period. So that this is when a lot of the military and religions were merging or becoming together, and so transferring over to the cleric and bishops being colonels and privates, or vice versa, actually. So I just filled that in going, that's not the important stuff, that's not the story that they're telling.
See, I like what you said, but you have to fill that in on your own. And, if you're going to build a world, build a world. Don't just drop things and then leave them.
So this scene, literally, if you cut it out, the only thing that you're really losing is Lorna, who Lorna is. But you could probably still get that when she comes to visit Amy.
I think you could.
Yeah.
So they're writing filler.
Because they did a good job by spotlighting her when the eye patch woman is talking to Amy, and then there's two guards or clerics, soldiers in Amy's room, and they focus on Lorna. Like, she feels conflicted why she's there guarding Amy. I mean, that was enough. And then, like you said, this is filler with her talking with the couple.
Yeah, all they really do is show her face, but you can tell by the way the camera lingers on her and how her face looks that she's going to be something at one point in the episode.
Yeah, so this is going part of my compliment sandwich, is that I enjoy how they're visually telling us Lorna is important. But then they ruin it by talking to Lorna.
You don't like that? I saw the Doctor once when I was little, and I really wanted to see him again.
I like what she's saying. I don't like how we go to it.
Okay.
Like,
gotcha.
there should have been like a more natural way of doing it. But I get it. You're new on Demon's Run. What's your story? You're from the Gamma Forest. I get all that, but it just felt very forced and a spotlight on it, as opposed to natural exposition.
This scene leads to another scene where the fat one loses his head or becomes a headless monk. But we needed to get to this next scene to show the boxes, but not because it's relevant to this episode, but because it's relevant later on. And that's what Moffat does a lot, which can be frustrating at times.
You never know when he's laying a seed like that, or if it's something he's just going to completely ignore. And what I'm developing is, every time he's planting a seed, I don't care. The things that I want him to answer and build, he doesn't.
Again, with Eugene and the confusion around the story, you have Lorna, who is a fan of the Doctor, wants to see the Doctor, is excited about the Doctor. And then you have the clerics, which their mission is to kill the Doctor. But none of that is very, very clear and separate at the beginning. So I assume Lorna's mission was on track with the rest of the clerics. So I think that just adds to the confusion, because I'm like, oh, well, the clerics are like helping the Doctor. No, they want to kill the Doctor.
Because when we've seen them in Time of Angels, they're helping the Doctor.
Yeah. So again, I mean, I watched it 3 times and I probably devoted more attention to it than your average viewer, and I was still confused. So while I'm still on that, my praise for this scene is the opening of Demon's Run, having that spaceship, like a little fighter ship, come into the dock, and then the camera move keeps going and the guys walk out from under the dock. Like, you can see where the seams are in the shot, but I still think it's a really great job of connecting like some cool visual effects to actual real world in camera stuff. And that stuff is an A+. I just really like
yes.
that. Yeah.
I mean, it really reminded me of something out of Star Wars. Most recently, like Clone Wars or Rebels. It just looked great. And I was like, yes, please, more of this.
Yeah. So, like, yes, visually, like, they did some amazing things. And I enjoyed watching the episode. It's just when you do stop to think, especially this early setting up stuff.
Yeah. And talking more about the good stuff in this scene, the lighting, I enjoyed. Like, it's colorful. You see that there's difference, like yellows and...
the starkness of Amy's room versus the moodiness of
like
pretty much everywhere else.
Like the boiler room look to
yeah,
it. The
I think this
ship.
episode looks great.
It does look great.
Later with Dorium, the lights in there is...
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
There's lots of beautiful, varied costumes, too, because they're going into the past and the future.
Yeah.
You got the Victorian costumes with Dorium's costume, which is almost old, but obviously future. And then, of course, you've got your standard Jadoon and whatnot. So it's a really big blend of all kinds of things.
The Doctor is traveling through time and space, collecting allies and soldiers to mount a war and rescue Amy and her baby. Among these are the 19th century Silurian Madame Vastra and her companion, Jenny, a former Centauran warrior, Strax, who is now a nurse because of a debt to the Doctor, and Dorium, who wants to have nothing to do with this quest. He heard rumors of what the Doctor is doing and told them to Madame Kovarian, also warning her of the meaning of Demon's Run, from an old saying, the oldest, Demon's Run, when a good man goes to war. At Stormcage Prison, Rory goes to get River Song, but she realizes that they are going to Demon's Run, and tells Rory that she can't be there until the end. This is the day when the Doctor rises higher than ever before and then falls so much further. And this is the day he finds out who she is. So yeah, Heather, this is what you were talking about with the different time periods.
Yeah, this is when we start marrying all the different time periods together. We met Vastra once before. We didn't?
We met the actress. She played a different character.
Yeah.
So this is the first time we meet Madame Vastra, Jenny, and Strax.
Yeah.
But don't they actually talk about that together? About the first time they met?
They do talk about the first time they met, which is different than what we saw.
Than the one that I...
Yes.
Interesting.
It's different than the Hungry Earth.
But the same actress playing in the same type of makeup. Same species.
Yes. Again, confusing.
That's not supposed to be confusing. What? But then again, I was happy living in ignorance, and you all had to go and ruin it. So, so we meet her and Jenny.
Mm-hmm.
And I love them, and they keep coming back. And then Strax is... At first, I was like, oh, Strax is annoying, but then you fall in love with Strax because he's a little dweeb.
Yeah, I agree with you. He at first I was like, oh great, this old gag, but then it works
because he's so committed to being a nurse
and I think
Sontar. Like, yeah, it's good.
We have seen Sontarans, so we know how much they crave war. So I think that's where the comedy comes from me, is that he owes a debt to the Doctor, and so to pay that, he has to be the thing that is furthest from his character. Which
really should make him immune to the debt that he then has to pay now, because he's already paying a debt. How many debts does he owe the Doctor?
Well, he says that he's bringing honor back to his clone batch or something like that.
as a nurse because he's paying off the debt or
Yeah.
whatever situation they were ashamed at that time.
It's probably defeat, to be honest,
Ooh, what could be worse?
to a Centauran.
Running.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
I didn't use that was a rhetorical question, Frank. I really like how Vastra ate Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
And they are another gay couple in this story, but it's done in a more subtle way.
Exactly. That's what I was going to bring up. Is like this is done better than the two clerics.
See, I think it's just done different to show the different ways the people, who are gay or would react and do things differently. And we're not all just one group, even though there's so many different letters in what we represent.
I felt like it was more the show doing it than an actor choice. I don't know why. Yeah. It felt like the show's decision to really like mama bird that down my throat. Or they could just be a cute couple who works together.
Yeah, like that could have been conveyed in maybe a handhold or anyway. I'm not going to go back to that. I'm going to say that I like the way Vastra and Jenny are. I enjoy that.
They're so awesome.
They're not liked. Those three people, those three characters, a lot of fans do not like them, and I love them. I want them to have their own spin-off.
It felt as if they were doing a backdoor pilot to a spin-off.
Yeah.
It did.
And a classic nod is when the TARDIS is in the mansion of Jenny and Vastra, is that it plays the TARDIS hum that's heard in Classic Who, most specifically the Unearthly Child, like that hum of the TARDIS just being there.
Oh, like a background
thing?
So
I thought that was cool. Yeah, because I thought it was because we had just done Edge of Destruction, which is rather timely that's what it's called, coming out this weekend.
Yeah.
And so having just like that being in my memory, I was listening to the episode A Good Man Goes to War, and I was like, is that it? And then listening to the commentary, they confirmed that was the hum from the classic shows. So I thought that was great.
Yeah.
And then when Madame Vastra exits her horse-drawn cab, she says, "Thank you, Parker. I won't be needing you again tonight." And then he responds with, "Yes, milady." To me, that was a reference to the Thunderbirds, because Lady Penelope has her chauffeur, Parker.
Oh.
And that's normally their exchange, like dropping her off at the base, picking her up. And so I thought that was cool.
Sorry, I don't know them.
Thunderbirds are go.
We had a lot of fun with some of the writing with River Song.
Oh, hell yeah, they did.
Dancing back into her cell. Oh, turn it off. I'm coming in, not out.
And then when Rory shows up, she's in the Centurion outfit, and she's like, I didn't think they read my memos.
Yeah, I liked that how it was. She's coming back from celebrating her birthday with the doctor, and she says, the doctor had Stevie Wonder sing to me at the last Frost Fair in 1814. What I love is that's the last Frost Fair where the Thames froze over. So there is another doctor and companion at that exact same Frost Fair having their own little adventure. So they overlap. I kind of liked that, where you would never know unless you're a complete geek like me.
This is the 12th in Bill, but if you don't know it yet, you don't know it yet. So it's not no spoiler. And her little reference to there are two doctors, when Rory's saying that he came from the doctor and she did. Just that's a whole different birthday. that was a cute little line.
Oh, I enjoyed that line.
So part of the stuff that I do like is the way that exposition is told here. And I think it's because Alex Kingston can say anything. And the way she acts and turns it from going like fun and fancy free from coming off of her birthday to then being super serious that Rory is showing up in the Centurion outfit and she knows what that means. And so I enjoy the two of them together in this, what could be potentially an exposition filler scene, but it's not.
She could read the phone book. And it would be interesting. That whole thing is just, I love that. And I love how Rory is so angry with her. It's it totally makes sense now, but we've really seen a character arc with Rory.
And you know what, now thinking about this, I think what I like about the scene with River and Rory more than I like the one with Lorna and the two clerics is that there's something going on between Rory and River, like behind the scenes, because we know them, where these people that are strangers on Demon's Run, I don't know where they're coming from.
Yeah, we're invested in Rory and Amy.
Yes.
Rory and well, yes, Rory and Amy, but we're invested in Rory and River. Whereas the other two guys, it's like, why are we wasting time with you?
Exactly.
With Rory, like coming into his own this whole episode is the first time that he's really using his own last name a lot, you know. Like Melody
Williams.
Yeah, Mrs. Williams, Melody Williams, like, and that comes more later, but yeah, just that reminded me, talking about Rory coming more into his own, and that's like the manifestation of it, like taking back his own name.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of.
He tries
as much as possible.
I understand the need for it from the story, but it is one of those things where, like, River saying, well, I can't come back to the end, you know, like Deus Ex River or River Ex Machina.
There is an in-universe reason for that.
Yes, no.
Yes.
I get it, but it's also very conveniently and it's spelled out, like she's not hiding the fact that she's going to come back at the end, but it is one of those things.
No, I agree with you there.
Before we move on, I just wanted to say, when we meet Strax and he's scanning the wounded child, did you see his scanner? It's literally a recorder, like the flute recorder, with just a little thing glued to the end. But it's like, when you really look at it, you're like, okay, you spent all your money in other areas. You're like, for this one quick scene of Strax scanning, just get a recorder and paint it white.
Well, he was recording the vitals.
Oh, okay. It looked like a recorder.
When the guy came after Strax left the tent, he like walks out and pulls out the gun right away.
Yeah.
For Kelsey, it looked like he was about to attack Strax, but I think it's just the Brits aren't as used to like going into combat like as Americans are. So like, I think the gun was coming out to be ready in case somebody else was about to shoot this person in the story. But yeah, it wasn't handled as gracefully as maybe some American action-oriented actors would have taken it.
That's how I saw it.
Well, Strax did just say that he wanted to meet the son on the battlefield and kill him for the glory of
Right. So he's just kind of like, I'm not going to take any chances.
He said it in such a civilized way.
Yeah,
very
That's
Centaurian.
Strax being sweet. Oh, hope everything's okay, that I can kill you someday.
What
then-
greater compliment can I show?
he says the same thing to the dad, the guy that came out, and then at the end he has the aside, now go get some rest. Like, because he does
yeah.
really care.
The more I watch this episode, the more I kind of like know the whole story as I'm watching each scene. With Dorian, that's where things are really starting to change. When he's talking about what, you know, like the doctor is somebody that when you first think of him, you're scared. You know, if the doctor's coming for you, you are in big trouble. And it really is a turn for the entire show. You know, I know these are the bad guys, but Dorian's really not. Dorian's really neutral, but his take on the doctor is fear as well. It's like, I've run across him, I don't want to run across him again. It's, you know, it's in contrast to Lorna. I came across him and I can't wait to meet him again, but there is that growing perception that the doctor's scary.
He's not just famous, he's infamous.
He's infamous, yeah. That's
I
good.
mean, even Dorian was saying, you know, if he's coming at you, watch out. If he's going to come get a debt, so you have to go after those people he wants to go after, watch out. It's like, whether you're on the side of the doctor or not, you're in trouble with the doctor.
Yeah, that I didn't like.
Weren't the same sort of problems that the doctor faces now also explored in the Pandorica Opens, where he gets too big for himself? And so how is this different, or how is this the same, or is this just...
Yeah, I think what we're trying to say is that Dorian shouldn't be afraid of the doctor. He's not an enemy of the enemies of the doctor should be afraid of the doctor. But Dorian isn't one of those. He helped the doctor. The doctor didn't like come after him for doing something wrong. To have somebody who's not an enemy of the doctor fear the doctor, I don't like that.
You know, he's like Han Solo. Like, I'm not a part of your rebellion. Like, I'm just here for my money. I don't know. But I just felt like when he was like, no, please don't come here. I don't want to have anything to do with this. I felt like it more came from a place of leave me alone kind of thing.
And about the Pandorica, I wanted to talk about this later, but since you brought it up, did the Pandorica happen in this reality?
It could be like a looser version of a fixed point in time where the doctor will always come to this point by being like bigger than his britches type of thing.
Right.
It just manifests itself in a different way this time.
It's the same thing, but thank you. You said it so much better than I did. And also, you did. a big difference was in Pandorica, it was those aliens who we deemed enemies. It was those aliens who were deemed hostile. In this one, it seems, because of what Dorian said, everyone has more of a fear of the Doctor. He's more known, not just among his enemies, but about everybody.
Jumping to the end a little bit, but I also think it's interesting in Pandorica, yes, you have all the aliens coming to trap the Doctor, but in this we have, at the end, many different aliens coming to also help the Doctor.
Right.
So
right.
it is a little different, but yeah, it's very similar.
But when Lorna and Amy are talking to each other, and Lorna says, "Oh, the famous Doctor, the Dark Legend, is that the word?"
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, this guy. He's so famous, everybody knows him, And I love Amy going, "The Doctor is not famous, but he is. They
Right.
just don't see it." And this is really eye-opening for the Doctor and Amy.
Like on season 5, we saw all of but the difference between this and like the end of season 5
I mean,
and
season 4 with the
is it season 4?
Jack.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, season 4. What's the name of the episode? The World's End, or so? And then we see all these people coming to the aid of the Doctor, but those were the Doctor's friends. Those were former companions. Whereas this, it's not former companions. It's people who the Doctor had an encounter with, and then was like at the end of it was like, now you owe me something, and I will call upon that at a later time.
And it could be just that this plan of his was a better plan than calling the other people involved. These people could go in quickly, get the strike done.
This is war. Like, I don't think the Doctor would have wanted former companions to put them in harm's way.
Good point. No,
Like,
but that's a good point, even because of the last episode, the episode we're talking about, where it's like, look at your army, look at these people who would sacrifice for you. So that hit, the 10th Doctor.
Yes.
Going, that's not what I want.
It's funny because this sort of idea that, like, this is how I played it out in my mind, is that the Doctor saves somebody and then they owe like a life debt, and it's not from an it is an obligation to the person that's being saved, but then the way it's played out here, it's as if the Doctor is going out collecting debts for this specific purpose, rather than, oh wait, I have a friend that I can call on, because this reminds me of the Shadow, the pulp comic character, and the Alec Baldwin movie, where the Shadow has saved all these people throughout his adventures, and then he calls on them when he needs them. Like Peter Boyle is a taxi cab driver that helps the Shadow because he saved his life. So there's a difference that the writing in this episode makes me feel that the Doctor's going around collecting debts for a later use rather than calling on people to help.
Are these the people that made the choice to agree with the Doctor? How the Doctor always gives people the choice, and we see on the show they don't accept the Doctor's offer or else it wouldn't be as interesting a show. But these are all the people that accepted that offer of change.
Yeah.
And also maybe it's because I just love the Russell T Davies era, but what if all throughout season 5, every time he stopped an alien from doing something and he gave him or her that choice to come with me for an alternative as opposed to what do you want, or I can punish you. When every time that ended that way, these were the people that he's calling on now. Like, that to me would have been like, okay, I see where you're going. Like,
Yes.
if the Hungry Earth episode had ended differently and that was Madame Vastra there, I would have been like, that totally makes sense. I'm just thinking like what I would have preferred, not that they're right or wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Lorna tells Amy about meeting the Doctor once and calls him a dark legend. Amy tells her that she better be on the right side when he shows up. Lorna gives Amy a prayer leaf that she has sewed, which has Melody Pond written in her language, and then leaves to join the other soldiers. From her window, Amy watches Colonel Manton rouse his troops by saying they will kill the Doctor. He pushes back the hoods of the headless monks to show that they are really headless, and so cannot be persuaded. When he reveals the last monk, it is actually the Doctor, who cavalierly yells to Amy to get her coat. In the control room, Vastra and Jenny shut off the lights momentarily. When they come back on, the Doctor has disappeared. In the confusion, a soldier shoots a monk, and the two groups stand ready to fight each other. Manton quickly regains control of the situation, telling his soldiers to disarm their weapons. Strax transports in with the Silurian and Jadoon troops, surrounding the now unarmed army and monks.
Brilliant.
So this moment is it's nine. I think it's nine. I timed it 19 minutes into the episode, and this is the first time we see the Doctor full on, as opposed to a shadow or like a mention.
Right.
Where I'm not sure it worked as effectively for me. Wherein I'm thinking of specifically the Christmas Invasion, where the 10th Doctor is recovering from being just regenerated. Story-wise, he's incapacitated for most of the episode. So by the time he actually is called to action, it's a little bit more like, yeah, rah rah, the Doctor is finally doing something. Where this one, it felt kind of forced. Like, I know what you're doing. You're making me want to see the Doctor. Like, I could see through the seams, if you will. And this was just on this last viewing over this past week for this episode. I never felt that before.
Yeah, I see what you mean, and I thought you meant this episode when you were talking about it, because he was gone for about a third of the episode. But the other one, he was out of it a lot more, but it seemed more real then. For this one, is the Doctor's presence was still around because he was orchestrating all this and referenced and saying, the Doctor's coming, he's doing something. They're talking, Dorium's talking about it. Rory says, I have a message from the Doctor. So he's a chess player, moving his pieces. And so his hands are still there, so he felt part of the story even if we didn't see him, to me.
Yeah, it didn't bother me at all. I didn't even miss him.
And I think that's why I feel the way I'm feeling, because he's not really missed. It's more like a bait and switch, like what we did with the opening, with Amy reading this thing that you think, or saying this thing to Melody that you think is about the Doctor when it's really about Rory. It's like, you did that once, you're doing it again, but visually.
But you always knew the Doctor was under one of those months. I mean, when he started pulling him up, it's like, okay, one of them's going to be the Doctor.
And I think that's why, because I can see where they're going, where I guess I'm more entertained when I'm surprised and they catch me off guard. Where this one I could see it.
And surprised, not tricked.
Yes.
Moffat doesn't do as well as some of the surprises. He does well on some of them, though.
Yes, he does.
That's coming up later. It was really great.
And I will definitely point those out when they happen.
I really liked it. I think it's great when you're just kind of like, oh my God, I don't know what the Doctor's going to do. And then when he reveals himself, it is like, haha, there he is.
I'm with you on this one, Brian. And I rarely disagree with Eugene, so I'm having a bit of a crisis right now. But
and like I mentioned, I only felt this way this past week. Like, I've never felt this way before.
Never felt like this before. I just feel like because they gave us so much to chew on, and that I was perfectly happy chewing on it until the Doctor showed up. And then I was like, oh, cool. Now we get a Doctor too. What's he doing here?
Yeah. Seeing the Headless Monks being revealed gives a whole new meaning to necktie for me.
That is such a disgusting effect. And it's so simple, but like...
well. It was really bad and good at the same time. And I didn't understand. He's rousing all of the troops that were going to go kill the Doctor. That's what they're doing. Why didn't they all open fire? Why didn't he open the fire once they saw the Doctor and just shoot?
What I mean, that's the problem. Like, what is the goal of the clerics?
Right. To kill the Doctor.
Well, there he was.
But I guess maybe
that was just a little weak point in the story. I know they needed it, and it worked out okay.
But why?
It's funny because I take Alburn's question differently. Like, why do they need to kill the Doctor? Like, what's their motivation for killing the Doctor?
Yeah, is that explained later? Like, what the?
And I don't think it is.
Okay.
I do. It's the end of the episode.
Oh.
Okay. When Amy says, "Can I borrow your gun?" to Lorna, I was like, that's a little harsh, because I've got a feeling you're going to keep talking. I was like, wow, Amy.
She makes another questionable gun decision later too. Yeah. I don't know what's up. I mean, maybe it's the mother-baby separation, but my God.
Yeah.
And I get it, but it felt weird because we are visually told to empathize with Lorna. Like, she's somebody not to be a bad guy. So when she's coming to Amy with something, yes, Amy is reacting the way you should, but it felt too harsh.
For me, it was a great, wonderful scene of Amy, showing old Amy of quick wit, and comebacks, and putting people down. I mean, having the old Amy, and through that whole scene, showing how she has grown since the beginning to actually talk to the woman in front of her and see her and say, I hope you're on the right side when the Doctor arrives for your own sake.
See,
and she takes the leave, thanks her. So I see Amy, like, this is part of the old Amy and the new Amy, and I love that she's showing her growth.
Yes, it does show her growth, but I felt there could have been a better way to show it. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that
Right.
it hit me differently this time, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm very off-putted by that comment." A lot of things about this episode hit me differently this past week, and I'm not sure why.
Maybe it's that the world is different than it was last week.
It could be, yeah. And then the uniforms that everybody's wearing, the clerics, it's weird. They're all like U.S. Air Force uniforms, because not only is that camo something that normal Air Force soldiers wear, but the chevron on their shoulder and even the banner behind Colonel Manton has that wing, like that modern wing design that the U.S. Air Force has. So it's just odd that so many things about it are with the United States as opposed to British Army things. And I thought that was an interesting choice. I don't know why they did that. Maybe because it's not something that the kids in Britain would see. But it kind of just struck me like,
or a lot of adults in America, because I didn't know this. Also,
Yeah,
it's 3,000 years in the future. Who knows?
Well, everything old becomes new again.
There you go.
But their monks still have like old-fashioned swords that are also lightsabers?
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, they're sun sabers from Thundar, not lightsabers. I was like, see, that there's another thing of that aspect of the monks. It's like, I can see where they're going with the clerics and the church, but then now you throw in this thing that seems anachronistic in the world, where it's almost retro into a future world, because they're in robes and they have like melee weapons rather than guns. So it's like, I want to know more about this world building. Why is this group to me primitive looking and one group technologically advanced? Because like they're wearing camo, like tactical pocket vests and things, and then these other guys are just in robes. Like they're diametrically different.
Yeah,
and I want to
like,
know why they live in the same world.
Well, I think it was intentional with the writers to have us fill in the gaps as we please, because they were telling a different-ish story, and they were just trying to make the antagonists interesting, if that's the right word. In this creating a mood, I think it's fantastic. They're mysterious, they're weird. I would like to know more about them, but I understand why it's not in this episode, and I think I disagree. Not disagree. I'm different from you because I don't think it needs it. I think it needs the mystery.
And to me, again, it goes to the style over substance. They sacrifice substance to go with the style of the mood for this scene.
Yes,
and
totally agree.
And for me, I want a little bit more of a balance.
Other than the fact that they cannot be swayed or whatever, is there actually a reason for them to even exist in this like, why were they written at all? Why couldn't it have just been...
Yeah, because style over substance, again.
Because they wanted to chop people's heads off and have creepy headless monks, like that's why?
Yeah.
Atmosphere.
And there's like no other reason.
Because I don't think we see them again.
Yeah, I think I just kind of always thought that there was going to be a greater purpose to their existence, and then there never was one. So I think maybe, Eugene, you're in the same boat where we were kind of overthinking the headless monks.
Totally, because they have no head, so we have to overthink twice.
Can I spoil the ending a bit?
Is it going to help explain the monks?
Yes.
Oh,
the reason they were there was part of the plan, because they don't show up and register as human on the sensors. They don't show up as a life.
Oh, they did mention that. Okay.
They needed that for them to be able to sneak back into the, at least story-wise, sneak back into the base.
And even at the end, I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that at the end.
And I like the idea of these creatures, because they are the antithesis of the Doctor, who is cerebral in brain, and that's the important part. And they cut that off and said, no, we're just faith following that.
I like
so I do like them, and I agree with you totally. I'd like to see them again and want to see them in depth and more to it. They couldn't figure out a different way, or maybe they just used them because of the good creep factor and put this in as a way that they could come back into the ship.
Because don't get me wrong with my criticism, I like what they look like, and I like the mood they bring. I just wish the story gave me a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah.
It should have been. It seemed like 2, episodes.
Yeah,
like they could really delve into it and flesh a lot of this out to be a fantastic story.
Like that, I agree with you on. Like, I want the forces against the Doctor building. I want more of that, because to have it come in one episode doesn't seem
right.
Justified might be the wrong word, but that's the best word I can think of. It seems too fast, too convenient.
Yes.
But you
I
also
do
don't
agree.
like them taking 16 minutes for the Doctor to collect his forces without seeing the Doctor.
No, but what I was saying is that if the Doctor had been collecting his forces in the previous season, that would have helped me. Like, now we know who these people are, we know what their motivations are, we go to them when he needs them. Like, that would have sat better with me.
Oh, okay. I can kind of see that's kind of similar to what I was saying with the change in now they're writing the Doctor too big and the Doctor is bad.
Yeah.
It's the impression that now the Doctor is a bad thing and
Yeah.
how that's different from the show.
And
I kind of see your point now.
Because what's going on now is what I think should have happened earlier in Matt Smith's season, because we just got off of David Tennant leaving with Time Lord victorious. To me, that's the height of the Doctor becoming this negative thing in the universe. Like, he's becoming too big. He's interfering with time because he's the last one. Time now obeys his rules. To me, that's a justification for the church coming together to say, we need to put a stop to this guy. I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm thinking. It's
No,
like,
I agree with you.
I want to carry on this conversation without the podcast.
What do y'all think of the Colonel's speech before unmasking the headless monks?
Harsh.
It was harsh, but it was also at the same time, like, I don't know if it bothered anybody else, but he kept referring to the monks as these guys.
Yeah, no, that bothered me. He did it twice.
Yeah, what was that? Just bad writing, or
Was he supposed to be sound American? Was that like the best
Maybe.
American they could?
Yeah, I think you're right.
I kept like
it doesn't
cringing.
fit. It's
but even in a military sense, I think you would say these men. If you're going to do the gendered noun, like
Yeah.
guys is just way too casual.
they should have used brothers. These brothers.
That
Yes.
Yes.
And then it would have the religious, yeah.
The Colonel is going off saying he's not a god, he's not a devil, he's just a living, breathing man. And then the Colonel follows up with, we sure as hell will fix that. And it's like, okay,
That sounds American to me.
very much.
Very.
Oh, and then also when the Doctor is revealed, he's like, oh, go ahead, point a gun at me if that helps you relax. It's
Might as well just said-
definitely an American, they're definitely doing an American trope here.
He
But,
should have just said, "Well, kill him dead. Kill him
Well-
dead." That's what he should have said.
I mean, okay, there's a lot of death in Doctor Who, a lot of people getting killed in Doctor Who, but this just seems so like, wow. This is a myth to me. This is an adventure show, a fairy tale even. I don't want to know that the rebels buy their X-Wings from the same gun manufacturer who sells the TIE fighters. That's not what I'm watching this show for. And just, it's that one line, it was just like too, I guess, you know what, now that I say, I think it's just because he says, our intention is to kill him, not capture him, not stop him, kill him. That just strikes me as different, a place where the show, at least for me, hasn't gone before. Again, it's a perception of Doctor Who that to me doesn't capture the fun that should be in Doctor Who at all times.
I wouldn't be me if I didn't lighten things up by bringing up the dirty joke. But Lady Vastra and Jenny had a nice moment
Oh yeah.
where Vastra says, "I don't know why you put up with me," and then she like slaps some guy with like her 30-foot tongue,
Right.
and you're like,
Let's give her a look.
I
Question
think the
asked,
adults in the room
question answered.
get it. So yes, it's not all doom and gloom in this episode, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I mentioned Colonel Manton. We've seen the clerics and the church before in Time of Angels. Like, why is he a colonel and not a bishop or like a cardinal, where they took ranks and they kind of interchanged them? So that was one thing that's kind of inconsistent for me. The rifles that all the other guards have, we've seen those before. Those are modified P90s from the Doctor's Daughter and the Impossible Planet Satan Pit.
Every time I watch this, I forget about the planes. And then it's like, oh yeah, the old planes.
Danny Boy?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, this is like old home week. Oh look, the 10th Doctor is collecting everybody from Torchwood and all the spin-offs. And this one is, look, every single person the Doctor came in contact with since becoming the 11th Doctor is going to come back and help.
Yeah.
And that, for me, the Danny Boy one was the one that stood out the most to me. I liked the pirate.
I think
And for some
Star
reason-
Whale should have showed up and been like, pew pew pew.
Yeah, the Danny Boy one doesn't doesn't do anything for me because I think it's just because I don't like that episode.
But also, if they would have shown in previous episodes to build up to this to be a real season finale,
Exactly.
and showed Vastra and what happened with her, and showed Strax and what happened with him,
Yeah.
then it's like, oh, they're bringing all those back. But they introduced all the new ones, and this is like the one, Danny Boy that was done.
Because when Captain Avery shows up, I'm like, oh, that was a couple episodes ago. So that one makes more sense, even though
it doesn't. But
it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
But there were space
doesn't, but I don't
pirates.
mind.
Because with Danny Boy in the Victory of the Daleks, we never even saw what Danny Boy looks like without the mask, piloting the Spitfire. So there's no connection because that episode was focused on the Dr. Bracewell or Professor Bracewell. It wasn't focused on the pilot. There's to me it's like, okay, we have this special effects shot, we can use it again.
Right.
Plus also it was stupid in the first episode too.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought that we hadn't seen some of these characters. They were new characters. And I think that's because I was bringing to them the history of their races.
Yeah, what's confusing is that the actors that play Vastra and Strax, we've met them before.
Yeah.
Vastra in Hungry Earth and Strax in the Centauran Stratagem. The actors, but then they're playing new characters, so that to me throws it off. Because if they were the same characters, that would have been better for me. It's like kind of connecting the dots in your head. And to me, that's why I don't like the Kelvin timeline of Star Trek, is because they're relying on what you know from established events and not establishing their own characters to make characters do things that are motivated by those characters. They're making them they're making the motivation from characters that are in a different timeline. And so that's how I'm sort of putting it on these two characters, these two races that we see again.
Don't get me started. The Doctor, like, the first time I watched this, you're like getting carried along with the story, and all these things are happening, and then the Doctor finally shows up, and he's like, I put in the recap, I said he cavalierly says, "Get your coat." So the Doctor's already acting like, oh, I got this one. And the first time you watch it, at least I watched it was like, yeah, this is great. And then you watch it again and again, and it's like, yeah, you're too cocky. You're too arrogant right now. You're not taking this as seriously as you should. Yes, you're really angry, and in your mind, you're just going to stomp these people. But you're being the Time Lord victorious.
And to me, this reminds me of the parting of the the end of the first season where
Eccleston.
Eccleston says to Rose on the monitor, he says no to the Daleks. He says no. See, to me, that served its purpose better.
Bad
where
wolf.
here he's too early.
Yeah. You see later where it's like, you're doing this all wrong. You shouldn't be doing a full frontal attack. And I just want to, you guys all remember Dorian, right? You know that we have seen him before in an episode.
Yeah, I mentioned we saw him in Pandorica Opens, I believe.
Yeah.
But Dorian did say that the monks were old customers, so who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe he's the middleman for that.
There's something about that in there's a prequel to this episode, and it's on the DVDs. Madame Kavarian and some monks and Colonel Manton, or it's just Colonel Manton, they go to Dorium for something.
Oh yeah, I kind of remember that.
Kavarian is leaving with the baby, but tells her guards that the Doctor must think he is winning until the trap is ready. Rory stops Kavarian with the help of pirate Captain Avery and his son Todd, who have also commandeered her ship. The Doctor, wanting to humiliate the Colonel from coming after those he loved, tells him that he'll always be known as Colonel Runaway. Kavarian is escorted to them and orders the Colonel to tell everyone to run away. Rory, carrying Melody, finds Amy's room, and the family is reunited. As everyone watches the army leaving, Vastra tells the Doctor that he has never risen higher. All this took place in 3 minutes and 42 seconds, and without them shedding one drop of blood. Rory remembers River's troubling words.
This is a great scene that totally is starting to nail home that the Doctor needs to stop.
Yeah, and it's
The Colonel scene.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
emphasized with the Colonel, like Alburn mentioned earlier. Like, why is the Doctor so mad at this guy? He's taking orders. Like, he should be mad at the General, the Pope, I guess in this case.
I mean, the Colonel does want him to stop breathing, so.
I just find it very odd that he's so angry at the Colonel that he wants him to be known as Colonel Runaway throughout history.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
seems like excessive.
I think his anger is misdirected, but I think that because his anger has to do with not only Amy, his best friend, being kidnapped, but her baby, that like he's pretty PO'd at the moment.
It's kind of like David Tennant with the Time Lord Victorious. He got pushed too far. I think it works better here with Matt Smith. Matt Smith got pushed too far, and the Doctor should not be doing this.
The first time he gets really, really angry that you hated Brian is the Star Whale episode, and we had just met him.
Yeah.
So we're like, hold on, like wait, back the truck up. But yeah, now we've been on this journey, and it seems a little more justifiable.
Yes, he is justified because, I mean, they're taking a baby. And also, to me, it felt like he should be this angry at Kavarian and not the Colonel.
Well, he is.
It just felt odd to be like, let's say, like Emperor Palpatine and Darth Maul. Like, you're really angry at Darth Maul. You want Darth Maul to be called Darth Wimpy. And then where there's this other guy that it's like he's pulling the strings. Tell me where you're, like, find the boss. It felt justified that he's angry. It felt misdirected.
I see it just from what you said that this is the Colonel. He came after me. He came after the family. It's like it's personal for him on the Colonel, but then the bigger game and the intellectual part was Kavorian's being the mastermind.
I would be okay with that if every time we saw Kavorian open the slot, the Colonel was right next to her. This is the first time we see the Colonel, so there's
Right.
I don't know anything about this guy, so it feels like
This
he should
guy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the way it's shot visually, it's that she is the one pulling the strings because she's the one telling him what to do, and she's got the two guards where he doesn't have any guards, so she's more important than he is.
She also has the authority to say, like, do what he says, Colonel, run away.
Exactly.
I like that line. Wait.
Well,
Can I bring up one little thing, Brian? Sorry. When they say that line, it's one of that double speak because it's tell them, Colonel, run away. But it's tell them, Colonel, run away.
That's the plan.
Tell them, Colonel, run away.
Home run, Jack.
Right. So it could take both meanings on it where she's telling them, yes, tell them that word, and also adding on that you are Colonel Runaway.
Madame Kavarian is going to say run away because she needs them to run away. She needs the army to run away. You find out later that it is part of the trap, but I do think she's higher than the Colonel. And I don't even think the Colonel knows the entire plan. I think the Colonel is doing what he's been told to do.
Exactly. And that's why I feel the anger is misplaced or misdirected. Because, sort of spoilers, there is somebody above the madam.
Can't wait to find out who.
We won't find out here.
Yeah, we won't find out here.
Don't ever make that sound again, please.
It's recorded. I'm going to put it on a loop for the outtakes.
Well, I just wanted to talk about the part where Rory comes in with the baby. I love how it sounds like he's clumsy and he can't figure out how to open the door, and you're like, oh, Rory. And then the door opens and he's dressed like a centurion and he has a baby and it's so cute. And then he wants to be cool, but he's crying. And for once, Amy's not making fun of him, and it's like one of those rare, really sweet moments that they have as a family. Well, I guess the first one they have as a whole family.
I have that same note where it's like, I've rehearsed this. I thought it would be much cooler, but I'm crying. I'm like, that's such a real moment to me.
Yeah.
That's one of the ones that I like in this episode.
And Karen's acting, I thought was really good. Just that Rory's there and it's so much hope, and then she realizes she has to tell him Melanie's gone. Her eyes and how she's like such happiness and such sadness in the same moment fighting that. And then when he's there with Melody, it gets me every time. It does. It is such a great scene.
Just makes me so happy. Moments like that are kind of rein you in when this episode starts to string you out. So, and they have a few, and they've actually do a really good job of distributing them. Like, I've got them kind of at the end of every paragraph. There's like the River moment and the Vastra moment and the Rory moment, and they're threaded nicely throughout this storyline of anger and killing people and all that fun stuff. So
I thought when the Doctor was sniffing and sniffing
Amy.
I thought he was doing it to make sure that they were real. Like,
Well, he's answering Melody. You know,
oh,
Melody says that she smells nice, and so he wants to see. And he goes, "Oh, she does smell nice."
oh, so he doesn't smell the baby.
He
No,
does. Oh, I thought he did.
no,
Yeah,
he's answering. Melody was the one saying that, you know,
Like mommy
big
smells
jugs of
nice,
milk.
or the big milk thing smells nice.
Okay, that all went way over my head.
I love the last bit though, where he's like, he looks down, and he's like, "No, they're not. Bow ties are cool."
Oh, speaking baby is not a thing, but how cute would that be?
I like, it's Rory remembers River's troubling words. I like the way that they did that. Like with Vastra telling the doctor, "You've never risen higher." We see Rory turn. So it's a good foreshadowing for the audience.
Especially at this point where it's a happy ending.
The one thing I will say to that though is I hate it when Doctor Who episodes, someone has a line about this will be the hardest thing he's ever done or the most amazing thing he's ever done. And I feel like if you just say that all the time, like it sets you up for disappointment because you're like, oh,
Right.
we're going to see the highest he's ever been.
Yeah.
And then you know.
And the thing we see is just the soldiers walking away with their hands on their head. I felt like we should have seen more of this, the results of what he did.
But I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. He's never risen so higher because he really didn't have to do anything. It was basically just his presence, his reputation, his legend that got him what he needed. I mean, River says in Silence in the Library, way back then, "I've seen entire armies turn and run away from the mention of this man's name." That's the point he reaches in this episode. Like, he's just being cocky and arrogant and just like strolling through two entire armies just stop. And I think that's what Vostra means. It's like, you've become so amazing that you could defeat an entire army in 3 minutes.
And I didn't get that from the end of this episode.
But I agree with you, Eugene, that it did not come across well. You didn't get as arrogant as you should. You didn't get the importance of no bloodshed. 3 minutes to, disarm 2 armies.
But the other thing that happened in last season makes what's supposed to be going on here for me emotionally, it worked better in the Pandorica Opens when he gives that speech at the end, "Let somebody else try first." That to me was the height of arrogance.
Right.
Yes.
This, Amy and him don't see that he's known, doesn't see that people are afraid of him. They can't see it. So there is that arrogance. And I think it could have been done so much better because I did not get this completely until after seeing it multiple times. Yeah. So I agree with you, Eugene, that it should have been done a little more blatantly.
Yes.
Spelled out more, and so that we could feel that arrogance more, like we have with Tennant with Waters of Mars, like we have with him at the Stonehenge.
So it's weird.
It did lay a little flat.
It's weird that they spotlight the couple in the beginning, but they don't spotlight this moment that is the culmination of what this episode is supposed to convey.
Priorities.
Right.
Like, I only know how it makes me not feel.
The Doctor's allies regroup near the TARDIS when Melody begins to cry. The Doctor brings out a Gallifreyan crib for her to sleep in, his old crib. The Doctor speculates that Amy was switched with her ganger before they even went to America. He leaves to meet Vostra and Dorium in the control room, where they show him Melody's DNA, which is both human and Time Lord. Melody must have been conceived on board the TARDIS, where the time vortex affected her. Vostra says that a Time Lord baby could be the perfect weapon, because just look at what the Doctor has done, and they think Kavarian gave up too easily. She and Dorium quickly go to warn the others. Kavarian appears on the monitor and tells the Doctor that the child is Hope. Hope against the Doctor in this bitter war. Fooling him once with Amy was a joy, but fooling him twice the same way was a privilege.
Oh, that's why you said that earlier.
Spoilers.
And I just showed up.
This is the point where you find out what the plan is, that there is a war with the Doctor. The war against him. And he's like, me? What's going on? So it shows that he's unaware of everything and that she has mounted this war with the help of others and getting them all together, the monks and things. So she has this whole big plan. So earlier we talked about that, and this is what you said, bring it up when we get to that point.
For such a smarty pants, it takes him so long to put all of this together. David did a better job of that, maybe it wasn't David, maybe it was the writing.
Right.
He did a good job of being like, we could see the blinders on him.
Right. But Smith played it well as to, I mean, why would, his whole idea of, why would you take a baby? How is that a weapon? Well, look at you. And it's like, this is me?
I still think it worked better when he did the same thing for the Pandorica plot
I agree.
than it's working now.
But I
now
like his
it's just like,
response. I did like his response, and it was subtle and saying, this is me. I mean, he's getting it. Like Pandorica, he's like, you're doing this all because of me. Still putting, you're doing all this because of me. The accent more on their actions are now, or I was doing it, and you're doing it because of a false reason, me. And here he's like, oh my, it is me. This is all coming down to me.
for me, I think
gave him
maybe
the
it
idea.
needed a better score or an extra minute of
I totally agree with you. I totally
needed
agree.
just a little something else.
I'm
to
just
really
feeling it or
hit.
picking it up more I watch it. So I totally agree with you.
It feels like the person running the spotlight is like a little off this episode. Like spotlight here, not here. Here,
Right.
not here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
I was
yes, yes,
just gonna
yes,
say,
yes.
It's. I thought that the reason for them not being in the TARDIS was clever, just to have it
Yeah.
be the baby's fault. Like the baby doesn't like the TARDIS noise, so we're all just gonna hang out here for a little bit until the baby calms down, and then we'll all get in the TARDIS and leave.
Another thing about this episode, we never go inside the TARDIS interior.
Oh, you're right.
I disagree with you, Kelsey, and this is why. The doctor says we have to stay here to find out why they built Demon's Run, what their ultimate plan was.
Oh,
why
I
they
didn't
wanted
hear
to
him
kill
say
them.
that.
He does say that.
But it could be where the doctor says we can't leave because I've got to figure out what they're doing for. Then everybody wait in the TARDIS. Wait where it is safe. You know,
Maybe
that's
doesn't
what you
like
would
it.
do in other episodes. But then, you know, you've got this screaming little hellion, and you'll risk everybody's life just to shut the up.
I think Amy's been on Demon's Run for the entire season. Like
Right.
her physically, she's been there, so she would probably want to go home pretty quickly with her new baby and all that. But second, it's interesting that we'll get there once we get the Ganger baby, but all of the Pond Williams have been artificial or plastic or flesh at one point on the show.
Oh, that's funny.
The other really nice part of having the baby not want to be in the TARDIS is that it gave us this great character moment with Strax and everybody trying to figure out how to help the baby. And that was just great.
That is so true, especially with new parents. It's like, it's my baby. I will take care of it.
But Strax's commitment is like, I'm prepared. It's just hilarious.
At this part where they're trying to get the doctor to understand how this alien DNA could be in the
Right.
baby.
Yeah.
You know, for as much as I did miss having the doctor on screen during the first half of the episode, I felt like the doctor was missing, but definitely this like little dialogue between all of them, he brought it all back here with with the wedding night, like coming to the conclusion that Melody was conceived on the TARDIS that was great. That's the Matt Smith I want to see all the time, playing off other characters and coming to this revelation within himself that it's a time baby.
Yeah, that was a good moment.
And he's like, Amy was worried that the baby would have a time head.
Yes, that was a good line to bring back.
Strax brings Lorna to Amy, Rory, and Jenny. She tells them that she overheard Madame Kavorian and warns them that this is a trap. They don't believe her when suddenly the lights go out and the trap is sprung. The monks have returned and surround the TARDIS with a force field. They kill the Silurian warriors and prepare to attack the rest of the group. Dorium goes to talk to the monks, who are old customers of his, but loses his head instead. The battle begins and Lorna fights alongside them. The doctor runs to help, but he is too late. The fight is over and Melody has burst into the goo of the flesh. She was a ganger. The practical effect of the baby Melody melting into goo is just brilliant. I love it.
It's gross.
It was heartbreaking.
They mentioned on the commentary that they tried it digitally and it didn't have the same effect, so they went practically with it.
Frankie, you said it was heartbreaking, but I mean, it should have been heartbreaking, but I was like, oh, I was so grossed out by it. And then Amy's face, she's just like, oh, my baby is a puddle. Like,
But they played me the whole time because I did not get that the first time I watched it, fully twice. And I didn't get that it was going to be Melody. And it shocked me and hurt. And it was devastating for all that. Oh, I get your view of it, but
why am I so immature? I can't stop laughing. I'm trying to be a grown adult. I'm sorry, a grown adult, but I'm just all I can think about is baby goo.
And her scream
All right.
for Rory was great.
Oh, I'm sorry. I will stop giggling at some point. Okay.
Talk about Lorna, because I really liked her character. I wanted to have more scenes and depth to her. I loved when she said, well, why did they call him the doctor? Because he's a big warrior and all this, and Amy was saying, well, he's not a warrior, but just put what she's thinking in there. Well, why would they call himself the general? Because what if he did, rather than doctor, what if we knew him as general? We would think warrior. We would think all that, because that's what that word means.
Yeah, when she first said that earlier in the episode, I was like, that line made no sense.
And it's so sad that when Bastra calls him over and says to somebody who wants to talk to you, and it's Lorna, and she's dying from her wounds, and he doesn't really remember her, but he lies to her and tells her he does, and that
I love
that breaks my heart. That
I
breaks
love
my heart.
it.
Oh, that was a good thing. And then after she passes, just turns to Bastra, who was she? So it's like, you lied, and you lied so well, and gave her some peace that she needed at the end.
But see, I was trying to figure out if the doctor was lying to her, because when he asked who was she, I think in what I've decided to take it as is the doctor does remember that moment that they had together. He remembers Lorna as that little girl and they ran together. But the reason why he asked who was she is like, well, who is she now? Like, I don't know who she became. Why is she on this station? And then Bastra, of course, has that great answer of like, I don't know, but she was very brave, which leads him to say they're always brave, which leads us to remember all the people that have died because of the doctor.
This little moment is kind of the moment that the fat one and the tall one are missing. They never get a little moment like this. But I think this is more kind of what I was referring to earlier when I said I felt like the Doctor Who, like full circle moment they didn't get one. And I think I'm glad that she did, because clearly they had planned that from the beginning, but they just crumpled up Fat and Talls and threw it in the trash compactor.
Yes.
They are devastated that Melody is gone when River suddenly appears. The Doctor is angry that she wasn't with them for this important battle. She tells them that all of this was because of him. He has made all manner of beings so afraid. The word doctor came from him and meant healer and wise man, but is beginning to mean mighty warrior. And now, his enemies have taken the child of his best friend to become a weapon just to bring him down. Still angry, he asks her again who she is. She shows him the Gallifreyan wording on the sides of the crib. He becomes absolutely giddy and tells Amy and Rory that Melody will be safe. He leaves in the TARDIS, and Amy picks up a gun, points it at River, and demands to know what she told the Doctor. The crib is in Gallifreyan and won't translate, but the prayer leaf made by Lorna is in the language of the forest and will. River picks it up from the crib and tells them that the only water in the forest that Lorna comes from is the river. They don't have a word for pond. The words on the leaf change so Amy can read them. Melody becomes song and pond becomes river. River Song is Amy and Rory's daughter.
Wow.
Moffat had this as his idea, and he only told Alex Kingston, so she was the one keeping the secret. And Arthur Darvill figured it out, and when he finally approached Alex Kingston and said, "This is what I think is happening with Moffat and his story," she just replied with, "Hi, Daddy."
I liked that there's a reference to her birthday. The Doctor's taking her skating on the Thames for her birthday. And so Rory met her on her birthday. That's why she's more affected, going, "It's Demon's Run. That's my birthday." And it's like, "You're coming back to my birthday." It's just, I love that little aspect of it.
I never made that connection until right now. I was 0 seconds old when I figured that out. Or whatever, however that saying goes.
This is also an episode where River doesn't say hello, sweetie, at all.
No, how goes the day? She says it isn't it hello, soldier? How goes the day?
It is something like that, isn't it?
And his argument that it's not about him was great, and her just standing up to him.
And I love, 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 love this speech by River. I just could not love it more. And how she can flip on a dime and just be like, "Oh, look, you're caught. Haven't seen that in a long time."
And during that exchange, Amy keeps asking the Doctor questions, and the Doctor seems like he's answering them, but he's not. So it's to that double speak writing that Frank appreciates, where she's like, what she asks him, like, whose cradle is this? And then he
answers that later.
Yeah, he says, or she's like, oh, she asked him, do you have children, doctor? And he says no. And then, but what he's actually saying no to is something Melody is asking him. No, it's my hair. It's my real hair. It's not a hat or whatever. But we think that he's answering Amy, but he's not. He's answering Melody. and then later when he's leaving, he answers a question that Amy asked earlier of like, whose cradle is this? And as he's leaving, he says, it's mine. But we're supposed to think that he's talking about the baby being his. And then he says, the cot, it's mine. And then everyone sighs of relief, especially Rory in the background. You can tell that he was really frazzled by that.
When Amy picked up the gun after the doctor leaves and she just grabs it and points it at River, it's like, she's had it. Stop all this. Tell me what happened.
God, I love it.
At that point, you also go, wow, she could shoot her daughter twice. Because she shot at her when she was the kid in the spacesuit.
So yes, I do agree that I like this moment, but there's one part that I don't like, is that when River is trying to comfort Amy, brings her tenderly over to the crib, she points her toward the Gallifreyan writing like she's supposed to translate. It's supposed to translate. I'm like, you know it can't translate. Why are you doing that?
Yeah, that was
exactly.
dumb.
Yes.
I don't like it because then it leads us to the leaf thing that Lorna gave her. It's like, just go to that.
Yeah.
Or even if she said, oh yeah, I forgot. This won't translate because it's written Gallifreyan.
Something like that.
Yeah. I really think Karen Gillan does a really great job throughout this episode, but at the end when the doctor is so ecstatic and happy because he knows the answer and he sees like, oh, Melody's gonna be fine because she's right in front of me, and he just is like happy, and you can tell right away like his emotions and attitude has gone up, but no one's telling Amy, and she's there just seeing the doctor get more ecstatic and she doesn't understand, and he leaves her again. Like that's her whole thing, is like the doctor leaves her and he's doing it right here. So I think she just does a great job of like that restrained, but like you can tell that the emotions are playing and she's confused and angry. Like, so.
And she would pull the trigger.
Yeah.
There's like no doubt.
And this is her whole life trauma, is the doctor coming and the doctor leaving, like from her childhood. Here he is doing it right when she feels the lowest and doesn't understand that everything is okay.
Right. And her reaction when River tells her that she's the daughter. I mean, Rory looks shocked, but Amy is broken. It's like she cannot fathom this at all. It's like, you're not saying any words that make any sense. Her expression was perfect. I just loved it. Karen did, oh wow, this is the Amy that just gets me. One other little thing I saw was when Strax is supposedly dying, Rory's trying to comfort him and tell him that, it's going to get better, things are good. Because Rory is the nurse. He knows medical, and he's just doing that to comfort. The way I can take Strax's line also seems to have a double meaning when he says, I'm a nurse. In that, I'm a nurse, I know the truth, I know what the wounds mean. But also,
that's how I took it in the first place.
Right, but also to me, it's like he always thought that was such a degradation to be a nurse, He's not a warrior fighting in battle. He's a nurse.
That's how I always saw it.
I do like the switch between Rory and Strax at this point, because like you said, Strax is the warrior, but now is a nurse, and then Rory has been a nurse as his occupation and is now dressed as the warrior, and only those two would know, like, being in two different occupations at this point in the story. And then when Strax is craving, like in the beginning of the episode, he wants to die in battle, and when he finally gets that death in battle, he's like, this isn't what I thought it would be. And I really enjoyed that a tertiary character has growth. That was a really nice moment in this episode, because Rory isn't the main companion when he starts off. And so I think that the producers and showrunner, they saw that there was something in him, so then they gave him a meatier role by having him become like more or less the second companion. And then with Dan Starkey, who plays Strax, he was in 2 episodes all the way in season 3 with a different showrunner, and then they saw how good he was, so they brought him back. So I think that they just saw that these 2 actors could deliver.
Yeah, and also the I mentioned this at the beginning of our recording, is that this idea of like, what's better, warrior, nurse, doctor, warrior, like, just like Rory and Strax have two different identities. One's a nurse and one's a warrior. The Doctor also has two different identities. One is Doctor, which means healer, and the other one is the Doctor, that means warrior. Because going back to like River's line of like Doctor means healer and wise man, we got that from you. I guess it was supposed to mean that like because the Doctor has been around since the beginning of time, like when the word Doctor was formed, they thought of the Doctor. But now, like with Lorna's people, they hear the word Doctor and they associate with warrior, with a soldier. And so now the word Doctor is starting to change throughout the universe. So it's like these two identities at odds with one another. And with the line that's so simple that Strax delivers, I think actually speaks to the question of this show. Which is better? To be a nurse or a warrior? To be a doctor or a soldier?
The ending of this episode, like despite my criticisms, is very satisfying. We finally get an answer to a question that is posed all the way back in season 4 with a totally different Doctor and a totally different showrunner, but the same writer. So Stephen Moffat had in mind who he wanted River Song to be. And to me, this episode, because of the filler, it's almost all lead up to this reveal. All right, so we mentioned River Song, played by the always great Alex Kingston. And then Madame Kovarian is played by Frances Barber. Charlie Baker plays Fat One. Don Johnston plays Thin One. Christina Chong plays Lorna Bucket. And I remember her as Tamsin from the Black Mirror episode, The Waldo Moment. And that's the one where somebody creates a character to run for office that's like a fictional character.
Oh,
I knew she was Canadian. She's Canadian, right? Is it Black Mirror Canadian production?
No, that's a British.
Oh, it's BBC? Oh, just kidding.
And then Neve McIntosh plays Madame Vastra. Catherine Stewart plays Jenny. Richard Trinder plays Captain Harcourt. Annabelle Clear plays Eleanor. Henry Wood plays Arthur. We mentioned Dan Starkey, who plays Commander Strax, and he played Commander Score in The Centauran Stratagem and The Poison Sky. Simon Fisher Becker plays Dorian Maldivor, and he was the Fat Friar in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Danny Sapani plays Colonel Manton, and he was a Border Tribe Elder in Black Panther. And then Nicholas Briggs plays the Cyberman voice. And John Davey, who we saw at Gallifrey 1, plays the Cyber leader, the Jadoon leader, I believe, and one of the male clerics. So, a good man goes to war. Who is this episode good for? Or more specifically, this episode is good for who? A new viewer, a casual viewer, a fan of the show, or a diehard?
I like this episode more given the insight that Brian mentioned. Like he can, whole races, whole planets are scared of the mere mention of his name. Like it makes, but I agree with Eugene. Like I didn't see that. It took us talking about it. Like it wasn't the Doctor's arrogance is not what I remember from this episode. And if that was the point, then yeah, they kind of dropped the ball on that. But I think it leads to some interesting discussion. So this is definitely like an episode where our podcast has a purpose. Like, let us talk about this and like grow to like these episodes more and kind of like get to maybe what the writers were going for or what the director was going for. When on just a casual viewing, you don't get that. You don't see it. So Die Hard.
I support your diehard. I don't know. I support your decision, but I don't know if I'm ready to be that intense. I'm going to go to fan, but because I think there's so much that you can get out of both the past and future of Doctor Who once you know the River Song reveal, that I think a fan deserves to know that. And that's pretty much it. Fan.
Okay, definitely not new. And so I was similar to the other two between diehard and fan. And I think if you become from casual to watching out of order, or then start watching, Capaldi or Eccleston, and then you want to watch more, you're going to watch it in order. Once you become from casual to a fan, you want to see it in order. So I think it's for a fan. But if you're a fan and just are going to still section out of it, then it's got to be a diehard, because you're going to watch it in order and it's too much of a reveal. But I think it's also one that if you watch in order and you're a fan, it helps you become a diehard. So I'm putting it as a fan.
I think, I mean, I definitely agree with all of the sentiments shared so far. I think I'm going to be inspired by Brian a little bit and say the entire episode is great for diehards if you want to watch the whole thing. But fans, just fast forward to get to River at the end. It's okay. You don't need the rest of it. I'll say for fans, because I do think it does have some redeeming. Like I don't think just diehards would find something in watching it. Although over the last 3 days, I have watched this episode 3 times and I still don't understand all of it. So it's hard to put it in like a more casual category, because as a diehard, I haven't been able to break it. So, but I'll say fan officially.
For me, it's 100% diehard, but diehard doesn't mean quality of whether I like it or not. There's no way somebody could follow this without knowing Doctor Who. I even think a fan might react badly to it, but honestly, I really like this episode, and a lot of the issues you guys were bringing up and the confusions. It's like that I never thought that. So it was just kind of like, I really enjoy it, and I would really like it when somebody who would be new to Doctor Who would reach the point where they could watch this and really love the reveal. But it is definitely a diehard.
After talking with everyone here about this episode as we went through the synopsis, I feel that this episode is mostly filler until the reveal of who River Song is. So I think that's where a lot of my criticisms are coming from now that I'm having it percolate in my brain. And I do agree that if this had been spread out for 2 episodes of the Doctor, like either the Doctor's enemies gathering together or the Doctor gathering his allies, one or the other, like I think it would have been better served for that climactic moment. But what I don't like is the way that we sort of lose our hero. It's the loss of our hero, and we had a great discussion about that in Waters of Mars. In Waters of Mars, I felt that it was more justified character-wise that the Doctor would lose his heroic nature by becoming arrogant. In here, we get the loss of our character through other people telling us that, and I think that's why it doesn't sit well with me. Like we mentioned, that there should have been something else to convey the arrogance of the Doctor and how that is changing the term of the Doctor not becoming a healer but now becoming this dark legend, this warrior. Like if that was something seeded out through season 5 and even season 6, maybe that would have sat better with me, but I can't say for sure because I don't have a time machine to change things.
A TARDIS?
Yeah. But all I know is that for some reason this week, rewatching this episode, it didn't hit me the way it hit me the first time I watched it. I think I'm going to have to put this into a fan category because there's too many things that you're not going to understand, and a fan would want to watch these in order to have that reveal be a reveal to them and not like, oh, that's dumb. Why do I care who this is? So yeah, I think this is going to be for a fan for me. So that wraps up A Good Man Goes to War. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
All our episodes are engineered by Auburn.
You can find him at auburnbinkley.com.
You can also find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/whoknewpodcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
Visit our Facebook page.
Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to help support Who Knew Podcast.
To listen to our show on your Amazon Echo device, enable the AnyPod podcast skill. Ask AnyPod to play the Who Knew podcast
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who.
The longest running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival, spearheaded by Russell T. Davis,
Thanks to Russell,
Sydney Newman,
Verity Lambert,
Ron Grainer,
Delia Derbyshire.
And all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
your work continues to inspire and entertain.